Cheryl Anderson, another one of our scholars for this week, is an Old Testament / First Testament professor, and she's writing here about reproductive justice and that we can find new voices in our conversations, both within the Bible and in denominations, among people who minister to women in need of care or who are themselves women in need of care. Anderson uses an example that reads as such from the Bible. Exodus 21:22-25 describes a situation in which a pregnant woman who intervenes in a fight between two men is injured and suffers a miscarriage as a result. The penalty is just the payment of a fine, which would not have been possible if a human life had been taken, according to Genesis 9:6 and Exodus 21:12. Then, in Numbers 5:11-31, a husband who suspects his wife has committed adultery can take her to the priests. They will make her take a potion that, if she is guilty, will make, quote, her womb discharge and her, quote, uterus drop. Chapter 5, verses 21-22. If she is not guilty, quote, then she shall be immune and be able to conceive children. Chapter 5, verse 28. All in all, Anderson brings up these examples in order to make the point that the witness of the Bible does not argue against abortion, at least in these cases, but it sort of uses it as a solution. And that complicates the argument about the Bible having one view as it relates to this question, as it is often argued. Anderson also argues that because these concerns uniquely impact women, it would behoove churches to listen to women. Often, it's the case in church and in society that men have led the way in discussions about women's reproductive health. And Anderson is simply proposing a change in that sort of way of relating, and that sort of patriarchal approach to women's reproductive health. What would this look like in a ministerial setting? What would it look like if faith leaders gathered and protested about women's reproductive health, taking into account the entire witness of the Bible? How would a commitment to hearing women shape how we minister to women who have already received abortions, couples who are pregnant and unmarried by their own choice, or young women who are seeking contraception? How would listening to women impact these sorts of everyday circumstances that we might come across? Many of you in previous assignments have stated a concern around teen pregnancy when it comes to sexuality education. The rates, as it turns out, according to the Center for Disease Control, have been decreasing for years, but it remains a concern for many people. And this is often because, as we noted last week, women's bodies sort of become more heavily policed when it comes to sexual activity. Women's bodies become more a topic of conversation whenever it comes to sexuality. And oftentimes men's bodies do not incur the same sort of scrutiny. And so what a more expansive view of reproductive health does not only allows us to think about sexuality beyond the concern of teen pregnancy, particularly young women's teen pregnancy, but it also enables a more nuanced view of sexual ethics. And it challenges our long-held notions about what is right and what is good. It allows us to rethink that when we approach our sexuality education and our Bible with a bit more nuance. It enables us to better understand people's particular needs without succumbing to rigidity, without succumbing to the normal social stigma, and without resorting to judgment that people often experience when in church settings.